Okay, let's just jump right in. We usually talk about social division as, a moral issue, right versus wrong. But what if the biggest hit is actually financial? What if the real cost of exclusion is something a country just can't afford?
I know, it sounds a little dramatic, right? But this is a very real question that economists are actually starting to wrestle with. I mean, can a country's internal problems, its social friction, get so expensive that it literally threatens its ability to survive economically?
And look, this isn't just some abstract idea. If you look at South Africa, the numbers are already painting a pretty worrying picture. Experts are saying that rising social tensions aren't just a social issue anymore, they're a direct and growing threat to the country's entire economic future.
All right, so to really get the financial side of this, we've got to peel back a layer and look at the social issue first. I mean, what are we really talking about when we say unrest?
The official term for it is xenophobia. But, and this is super important, the research we're looking at makes a crucial point right up front. This is not about pointing fingers or slapping a label on an entire country.
Instead, what the research shows pretty clearly is that these tensions, they're usually symptoms of something else. They're symptoms of intense economic pressure. Think about it. When jobs are hard to find, inequality is through the roof, and you can't even get basic services, well, people get frustrated. And it's just so easy to aim that frustration at a group you can see, like immigrants, instead of tackling the messy, complicated economic problems that are the real root cause.
Okay, so how does all that social pressure actually turn into cold, hard cash problems? Well, when that tension finally boils over to chaos, it's like an earthquake hitting the economy.
And here's the absolute core of the problem: money. Well, money hates uncertainty. It runs away from risk and chaos. So when an investor flips on the news and sees social unrest, they're not thinking about the social issues. They're thinking one thing: risk. And what do? They hit pause on big projects, they pull their money out, and they just wait and see.
And you see this pattern play out all over the world, time and time again. Capital flows to stable places, and it flows away from chaotic ones. It's not investors making some kind of moral judgment. It's just a simple calculation of risk versus reward. And that simple math puts unstable places at a huge, huge disadvantage.
Now here's where it gets really real. This instability doesn't just stay on the news. It hits a country's currency hard. When confidence drops, so does the value of the rand. And what does that mean? It means everything the country imports suddenly gets way more expensive. That fuels inflation, and it hits every single person right where it hurts: their wallet.
And it's a domino effect, right? It just paralyzes the whole country. Those big job-creating infrastructure projects, we're talking new roads, ports, you name it, they just stop. Suddenly, businesses can't afford insurance. And all that money that should be going to schools and hospitals, nope, it gets rerouted to security. It's a perfect recipe for economic gridlock.
But the damage doesn't just stay inside the country's borders. Oh no. A crisis at home very quickly turns into a problem on the world stage. It starts affecting everything from who's moving in and out of the country to its relationships with trade partners. You've probably heard of the brain drain, and this is it. But it's actually much bigger than that. When skilled people pack up and leave, we're talking engineers, doctors, entrepreneurs, whether they're local or foreign, they don't just take their skills. They take their tax dollars with them. They take their business networks. And maybe most importantly, they take all their ideas for the future.
This quote from the source material really just nails it. It's not just about losing workers. It's about losing the entire capability to compete, to create new things, to grow. And that, right there, is a much, much deeper problem. So where does all that investment money go? Well, big multinational companies that want a foothold in Africa, they just pivot. They redirect their money to other countries in the region that seem more stable. It's a straight-up economic loss for the country in turmoil. And then there's the long-term damage, the damage to a country's reputation. It can take decades to build yourself up as an economic leader on the continent, but all it takes is a few high-profile incidents of unrest to completely trash that image. And that can lead to being left out of important trade deals and partnerships later on.
So after you add up all these costs, the analysis takes a really interesting turn. It completely reframes the whole conversation. It stops being a choice between doing the right thing and doing the smart economic thing. Turns out they're two sides of the very same coin.
And wow, when you see it laid out like this, the choice is just incredibly clear. You've got one path, exclusion, that leads to a weaker economy, a tarnished reputation, and a massive brain drain. And then you have the other path, inclusion, which is the one that actually brings in investment, creates stability, and strengthens the whole economy for everybody.
And that brings us to the key takeaway, the most crucial point of all. Building a stable, inclusive, and united society, it's not just some feel-good moral goal. According to the economic data, it's actually the most practical, effective strategy a country can have for bringing in money, keeping its best and brightest, and building a prosperous future.
Which kind of leaves us with one last big question to think about. In today's world where money and talented people can move anywhere in a heartbeat, maybe a country's biggest competitive advantage isn't its oil reserves or its low tax rates. Maybe, just maybe, it's how strong and stable its society is. What do you think?